in 1934 in Paris, Bardot began as a ballet dancer before rising to fame with the 1956 film And God Created Woman. It wasn't just her roles that turned heads, it was her unapologetic attitude, her bohemian style, and the way she challenged conventional norms around femininity and sexuality. By the 1970s, she retired from acting at the height of her fame and dedicated her life to animal rights activism, a passion that continues to define her legacy. A true icon, Bardot was never just a movie star. She was a mood, a moment, and a movement. Brigitte Bardot's impact wasn't confined to the screen. She became a fashion and cultural icon, inspiring designers, artists, and musicians alike. The cargo neckline, a wide coupe that exposes both shoulders, is named after her. She helped popularize bikinis, winged eyeliner, and a laid-back, sultry aesthetic that defined an era. In her prime, Bardot embodied a new kind of femininity, free-spirited, rebellious, and overtly sensual, a stark contrast to the traditional roles women were expected to play in post-war society. She was adored in France and became an international sensation, gracing magazine covers, starring in over 40 films, and recording dozens of songs. Despite her fame, Bardot often spoke of feeling trapped by celebrity, calling it a prison. In 1973, at only 39 years old, she stunned the world by walking away from cinema to focus entirely on animal welfare. She founded the Brigitte Bardot Foundation in 1986, turning her passion into activism. She became a fierce advocate against animal cruelty, fighting issues like seal hunting and bullfighting. In the first reign, however, Bardot's post-acting life has been marred by controversy. She's faced multiple convictions in France for inciting racial hatred, due to inflammatory remarks in her writings about immigration and Islam. These views have significantly complicated her legacy, adored by some, criticized by others. Still, Bardot remains an enduring figure, a woman who redefined beauty, shook up society's expectations, and followed her own path, regardless of the cost. She's a symbol of the freedom and contradiction of the 20th century, radiant and rebellious, tender and tumultuous. Glowing star rise to fame, the making of a myth. Brigitte Bardot began modeling as a teenager. Appearing on the cover of Elle magazine at age 15, this caught the eye of film director Roger Vadim, who would later become her first husband and the man behind her breakout role in And God Created Woman, 1956. The film was scandalous for its time, sensual, sun-soaked, and centered on Bardot's raw, magnetic energy. It launched her into stardom and transformed Saint-Tropez, where it was filmed, into a glamorous global destination. Her performances in La Vérité, 1960, Contempt, La Maîtresse, 1963, directed by Jean-Luc Godard, and Viva Maria, 1965, showed her ability to blend innocence with provocation, comedy with drama. But Bardot wasn't just acting, she was living the roles, uninhibited. Moody, and deeply real. Framed picture cultural icon and muse, Bardot was the muse of an era. Artists like Pablo Picasso painted her. Serge Gainsbourg wrote songs for her, including the infamous Je t'aime, moi non plus, though she asked him not to release it at the time due to her marriage. The Beatles mentioned her. Andy Warhol immortalized her. She was often compared to Marilyn Monroe, but Bardot felt more untamed, less manufactured, more rebellious. She didn't strive to please, she provoked. She could be charming and aloof in the same breath. Her influence extended to the streets. French girls copied her tousled hair and eyeliner, her off-the-shoulder tops and ballet flats. She wasn't trying to be stylish, she was styled. A new chapter. The activist. After retiring from acting, Bardot withdrew from public life and dedicated herself to animal protection. She She sold off her personal belongings, including jewelry and art, to fund her foundation. Her campaigns have had real political impact in France and abroad, bringing attention to issues like stray dogs, industrial farming, and illegal animal trafficking. Her activism is passionate and uncompromising. She has written open letters to presidents, clashed with industry leaders, and never shied away from controversy when animals were involved. High Voltage: A Legacy of Light and Shadow. Brigitte Bardot's story is full of contradictions. She was a sex symbol who felt imprisoned by her own image, a free spirit who longed for solitude, a celebrated beauty who often rejected praise, a humanitarian for animals whose political views have divided public opinion. In her own words, Bardot once said, "I gave my youth and my beauty to men. I am going to give my wisdom and experience to animals." Now in her 90s, she lives quietly in the south of France, surrounded by rescued animals, far from the spotlight but never forgotten. Whether you admire her for her boldness, her style, her films, or her fierce love of animals, Bardot remains one of the most fascinating women of the 20th century. Heartbreak, love, fame, and fire. Brigitte Bardot's love life was as passionately lived as her film roles, sometimes chaotic, often tabloid-worthy. She married Roger Vadim at 18, the man who would make her a star. Their relationship was both creative and volatile, setting the tone for many that followed. She would go on to have 4 marriages and many high-profile affairs, including with musician Serge Gainsbourg, actor Jean-Louis Trintignant, and even rumored dalliances with Marlon Brando and Sacha Distel. Bardot never apologized for her desires. She embraced them, even as the press tried to paint her as scandalous. But fame was a double-edged sword. The world saw a goddess. Bardot often felt lonely, misunderstood, and hunted by paparazzi. She once attempted suicide in her 20s, overwhelmed by the pressure of public life. That rawness, that inner conflict between freedom and fragility, was always visible, even in her most glamorous moments. Rolled-up newspaper public image. Between liberation and critique in the 1960s, Bardot became a symbol of sexual liberation, not through activism, but by simply existing as herself. She refused to be boxed in. While many celebrated her for this, others criticized her for being too provocative, too wild, too independent. Feminists were split. Some saw her as empowering. Others felt she reinforced objectification. Bardot herself never claimed to be a feminist. In fact, she often rejected the label, but her very presence challenged societal norms. She was also famously anti-Hollywood, preferring to work in France, closer to home and on her own terms. She turned down big American offers, preferring freedom over fortune. Books. Words from Bardot. Her autobiographies, like Initials BB and Le Carré de Pluton, reveal a woman full of contradictions, fiery but vulnerable, bold yet reclusive, confident in her choices but wounded by public misunderstanding. Some striking Bardot quotes: "It is better to be unfaithful than to be faithful without wanting to be. I leave before being left. I decide. I am not a woman like any other, and I do not pretend to be." Face mask. Influence on film and pop culture. Though she left cinema early, Bardot's impact is everywhere. You can see her DNA in actresses like Monica Bellucci, Scarlett Johansson, Margot Robbie, and even pop stars like Madonna and Lana Del Rey. They've borrowed her mix of softness and edge, sensuality and sorrow. Her film contempt is now studied in film schools. Designers like Dior, Gaultier, and Dolce & Gabbana cite her as a constant inspiration. Even decades after her retirement, the world hasn't stopped referencing Bardot. Brigitte Bardot is one of those rare figures whose life feels like myth, but it was very real, messy, beautiful, tragic, and entirely her own.
Tên của bà đã góp phần phổ biến bikini, kẻ mắt cánh và phong cách thẩm mỹ. trong những khoảnh khắc quyến rũ nhất của bà.
Brigitte Bardot, more than a French actress, she was a symbol of liberation and beauty who captivated the world in the 1950s and 60s. With her tousled blonde hair, smoky eyes, and effortless sensuality, Bardot became the face of a cultural revolution. Born in 1934 in Paris, Bardot began as a ballet dancer before rising to fame with the 1956 film And God Created Woman. It wasn't just her roles that turned heads, it was her unapologetic attitude, her bohemian style, and the way she challenged conventional norms around femininity and sexuality. By the 1970s, she retired from acting at the height of her fame and dedicated her life to animal rights activism, a passion that continues to define her legacy. A true icon, Bardot was never just a movie star. She was a mood, a moment, and a movement. Brigitte Bardot's impact wasn't confined to the screen. She became a fashion and cultural icon, inspiring designers, artists, and musicians alike. The Bardot neckline, a wide scoop that exposes both shoulders, is named after her. She helped popularize bikinis, winged eyeliner, and a laid-back, sultry aesthetic that defined an era. In her prime, Bardot embodied a new kind of femininity, free-spirited, rebellious, and overtly sensual, a stark contrast to the traditional roles women were expected to play in post-war society. She was adored in France and became an international sensation, gracing magazine covers, starring in over 40 films, and recording dozens of songs. Despite her fame, Bardot often spoke of feeling trapped by celebrity, calling it a prison. In 1973, at only 39 years old, she stunned the world by walking away from cinema to focus entirely on animal welfare. She founded the Brigitte Bardot Foundation in 1986, turning her passion into activism. She became a fierce advocate against animal cruelty, fighting issues like seal hunting, bullfighting, and the fur trade. However, Bardot's post-acting life has been marred by controversy. She's faced multiple convictions in France for inciting racial hatred. Due to inflammatory remarks in her writings about immigration and Islam, these views have significantly complicated her legacy, adored by some, criticized by others. Still, Bardot remains an enduring figure, a woman who redefined beauty, shook up society's expectations, and followed her own path, regardless of the cost. She's a symbol of the freedom and contradiction of the 20th century, radiant and rebellious, tender and tumultuous. Glowing star rise to fame, the making of a myth. Brigitte Bardot began modeling as a teenager, appearing on the cover of Elle magazine at age 15. This caught the eye of film director Roger Vadim, who would later become her first husband and the man behind her breakout role in And God Created Woman, 1956. The film was scandalous for its time, sensual, sun-soaked, and centered on Bardot's raw, magnetic energy. It launched her into stardom and transformed Saint-Tropez, where it was filmed, into a glamorous global destination. Her performances in La Vérité, 1960